Hi, this is Desalini, and I'd like to pose you a very quick question. When we say a long play record, what do we actually mean by long? And to take that the other way around, what do we mean by short? What would be a short album? In short, it depends. No, really, in the 50s and 60s, pop, rock and roll records were usually what I think we'd probably now consider quite short. And I think a lot of that was down to the fact that, everything was using vinyl as a medium. That was what there was. Yeah, the first Beatles album to run for over 35 minutes, which is, I think, what I would probably call short, was Sgt. Pepper. Everything before that was in that kind of 30-ish minute range. Yeah, this was the norm for that time. Albums were shorter. Albums by the Kinks, the Zombies, the Hollies. Yeah, think of all that kind of, the beat group albums, stuff on those labels like Decca and Pi. And I think as bands kind of matured and developed and started playing around a little more, experimentation, psychedelia, concept records, progressive rock, ultimately, albums just seemed to get longer. You got a lot more double albums. So yeah, in case you didn't already get it, the list of albums that I'm going to be making and talking about today are albums which I think classify as being short. These are short, long play records, all being less than 35 minutes in length. So for this list, I had to make some ground rules. As I've already said, nothing from the 50s and 60s. We really don't need a list which has got 5 Beatles albums in it. I think we have enough of those on YouTube already. I'm only considering studio albums, nothing live, no compilations. I will only be looking at, what was originally released on that album. So no including, bonus material from, deluxe box sets, reissues, that kind of thing. And also, I will make sure that I'm only including albums that were released as an album. This is where things get nitpicky. People start, calling you out about, oh, that's a mini album, that's an EP. It is a grey area, I'll admit that. But I think if it was released and was classified as an album, then it's in as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, there's going to be no hard and fast kind of genre inclusions or exclusions this time, right? With one exception, none of that grindcore stuff, because, clearly if you are making tracks which are, a few seconds in length, your albums are going to be short anyway. As always, this is just some favourites. Nothing's ranked here. And the order I'm listing them in today is in order of decreasing runtime. So I'll be starting with, the longest albums under that 35-minute threshold and going shorter and shorter as we proceed. So first up, I'm clocking in at 34 minutes and 25 seconds. I have Computer World by Kraftwerk. Yeah, so this was released in 1981. I think it's the band's 8th album. And it is their shortest. And why wouldn't you include a Kraftwerk album? They're up there with the Beatles, as far as I'm concerned, as the most influential musical act of the late 20th century. And Computer World is a seminal electronic album of the 1980s, big influence on lots of people, including, electro kind of hip hop artists. The one thing I would urge you to be careful about with this album is that it does feature the track Computer Love, which of course was pilfered by Coldplay for their track Talk. Don't blame Kraftwerk for that. So second up, I have Surfer Rosa by Pixies. This one clocks in at 34 minutes and 7 seconds. Yeah, here's my vinyl copy of it. Yeah, this would be either the first or second LP, depending on how you want to classify, Come On Pilgrim. Their first release, was it a mini or was it a full-length album? That's up for discussion. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Surfer Rosa. I mean, I think most people watching this video would know it. It's just a massively influential album on the alt kind of indie boom of the early 90s. I will admit, when I was considering this, I double took when I looked at the runtime. I'm like, it's one of those records you're like, really? Is it that short? It never feels it. So third on my list, and clocking in at 33 minutes and 54 seconds. This one's a little personal favourite of mine, and it is The End Is Near by The New Year. Yeah, The New Year is the kind of the post-Bedhead outfit formed by the Cadane brothers, Matt and Bubba. Yeah, The End Is Near is their second album, and yeah, it's great. You should really just consider them a continuation of Bedhead, if that makes it easy for you. The creative core is exactly the same. Yeah, you get kind of very pretty, chiming, complex guitars, great songwriting, and ironically enough, I think the high spot of this album is the nearly 8-minute track called 18. So that takes up, nearly a quarter of the entire runtime of the album. Yeah, that's a belter. And at fourth, clocking in at 33 minutes and 32 seconds, I've got After the Gold Rush from Neil Young. Yeah, this is Neil's third solo album from 1970, and yeah, it's just a classic. It just has some of Neil's greatest songs of this period. Think Only Love Can Break Your Heart, Southern Man, Don't Let It Bring You Down. Yeah, not too much to talk about with this one. It's just, a great early period Neil Young solo album. Fifth on the list, I've got Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges from 1973. This one clocks in at 33 minutes and 26 seconds. Yeah, this is just one of the most influential records ever, I think. It totally set the stage for punk rock, which would come along a few years later. Yeah. And this album's definitely kind of harder, rawer, punchier, more direct than the kind of slightly more groove-based earlier Stooges releases. Yeah, the production on this one is legendary for, its messiness. People have tried to remix it time and time again. Some people disagree with how that sounds. Others prefer it. Yeah, I don't think there's too much you can do to pretty up this record. Yeah, you just have to make up your own mind. And sixth on my list, clocking in at 33 minutes and 5 seconds, I have Life's Too Good by the Sugar Cubes. Yeah, this is their debut from 1988, and just like Surfer Rosa, it's one of those ones that doesn't feel short. I kind of looked again like, really? Is it that short? Yeah, but yeah, this is the album that introduced the world to, Björk, and it's a great record. The Sugar Cubes were basically, a collection of Icelandic punks and post-punk types who decided to try their hand at kind of, a cleaner kind of sexier pop music, if you like. And they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, really. Yeah, for a debut, this is packed with some really great songs. Birthday was the breakthrough single, a huge hit, really. Deus, Mama, yeah, all brilliant. Down below 33 minutes now, this one clocks in at 32 minutes and 10 seconds. And this is the debut album, the self-titled album, from the House of Love from 1988. Yeah, strange, the House of Love. They were kind of a bit of almost a betwixt kind of group in the musical evolution of the UK indie scene. Yeah, I feel the House of Love were never quite noisy enough to really be kind of clubbed in with all the shoegaze bands. But they had some great songs during, I think, what turned out to be quite a brief period, in the spotlight. Yeah, their album is, to me, here it is, I have it on cassette, of all things. Yeah, it's oddly timeless sounding. It's got a kind of a songwriting feel which could kind of quite happily date it to the late 1960s. Think that Baroque kind of pop sound of oddities like, the Left Bank. But you do get a dash of noise. You do get kind of some of that Jesus and Mary Chain flavor. You get some of that Velvet Underground kind of, raw prettiness. And I think most strongly of all, you get a real sprinkling of that kind of psychedelic post-punk flavor that the Bunnymen had. Yeah, this one's still a great record, I think. So now down below 32 minutes, at 31 minutes and I think about 46 seconds. This does vary depending on where you check this one up. But I've got Rocket to Russia by the Ramones. Quite honestly, any of the first four Ramones albums would grace this list. They're all less than 35 minutes long. The debut is the one that always gets, all the plaudits, and rightfully so. But for a change, I thought I would give a little shout out to Rocket to Russia, their third album. Yeah, it's got some absolute Ramones classics on this one. Rockaway Beach, Sheena is a Punk Rocker, Teenage Lobotomy, Cretin Hop. So ninth on the list, and to my records, a second shorter than that Ramones album, I have this one, which is, avert your eyes if you've got a nervous disposition, Big Black's second and final album, Songs About Fucking. Yeah, Big Black had planned to split up prior to the recording of this album. So this is basically Big Black laying it all out there in one kind of mad, scabrous kind of skull-rattling rush. They didn't leave anything off the table here. It's a lot of, very, very dark fun. It's very abrasive and incessant, packed with gallows humour. Yeah, I think it's a great record. And yeah, it does just whiz by. So yeah, halfway through this list at number 10, clocking in at 30 minutes and 52 seconds, I have Vampire on Titus by Guided by Voices. Yeah, here it is here. This one was released in 93, it was the album immediately preceding B1000, so this was the one before everyone kind of discovered them. But yeah, it's prime lo-fi, Guided by Voices. It's typical Bob Pollard. Some lovely songs, buried under just, tons of this Tascam kind of filth. Yeah, some great tracks. Jar of Cardinals, Expecting Brainchild, Non-Absorbing. These are all my highlights. So 11th on my list, and finally dipping below that 30-minute barrier at 29 minutes and 46 seconds, I've got It's a Shame About Ray by the Lemonheads. Yeah, this was kind of the Lemonheads' big moment, this album. It was a big hit record. And I think it was probably Evan Dando's best set of songs as well. Yeah, kind of punk pop with a kind of jangly, folky, very laid back kind of vibe. Yeah, this is a definite kind of one of those sweet spot albums. It landed at the perfect time, mid-grunge, connected with a lot of people, got lots of radio play. Yeah, the runtime on this one, by the way, does refer to the original album release. They did tack on Mrs. Robinson following that single success, which kind of, bumped the runtime up a bit. But on the original album release, that wasn't there at all. Bit of a mood shift here, going from sunny Evan Dando to, this is Desert Shore by Nico, her album from 1970. This one clocks in at 28 minutes and 51 seconds. Yeah, there you have the Lemonheads with their kind of, goof off, knockabout kind of punk. And here you've got Nico with her really bleak, despairing art. I guess you'd call it pop. Yeah, musically, this is very, very minimal, very stark. And Nico's, deep, clear, booming voice really dominates. Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful record, but very gloomy, very, very atmospheric too. Yeah, what can you say? Nico, kind of a slightly doomed, but very singular artist. And on this one, she's doing what she did spectacularly well. So next on my list, 13th entry, clocking in at 28 minutes and 30 seconds, I have Vehicle by The Clean, released in 1990. Yeah, here's my copy of Vehicle. Yeah, this is a bit of a bittersweet inclusion. This was partly the inspiration for me drawing up this list, but in case you missed it over the last few days, we've heard about the death of Hamish Kilgour, the band's drummer, and the brother of guitarist David. Yeah, Hamish was a very, very talented guy, as well as his drumming style. Yeah, he sang, he wrote, he played in his own band called the Mad Scene, and he painted a lot too. Yeah, Hamish is just like a Dunedin legend. Yeah, Vehicle's the kind of the then recently reformed Clean, just, getting it together and just quietly knocking out just some genius without really breaking a sweat. Yeah, it's this kind of galloping, ringing, rattling pop music with this real kind of heartfelt, kind of just propulsive kind of abandon. Yeah, if you haven't heard this record, acquaint yourself with it. It's got some great tracks on it. Drawing to a Hole, Dunes, Bye Bye, Big Cat. Yeah, it's just genius. So quickly in here at 14, clocking in at 28 minutes, 22 seconds, I've got Pink Moon by Nick Drake. Yeah, this is just Nick Drake's, final album. Bit of a 70s folk masterpiece, really, although it did have its detractors at the time of its release. Yeah, his finger-picking guitar style is just a thing of absolute wonder. Listen to the track Road. And yeah, combined with his restrained, kind of detached, slightly withdrawn voice. Yeah, it's a wonderful record, which I would hope you would all know very, very well. So the 15th record on my list, dropping below 28 minutes. This one's 27 minutes, 54 seconds, according to my sources. And it is Sorry Ma, Forgot to Take Out the Trash by The Replacements from 1981. Yeah, this was the Matt's debut. And it's just kind of a garage punk classic. Yeah, the sound is underpinned by punk. Yes, this was kind of, peak kind of hardcore. But really it's this kind of scruffy kind of barroom power pop vibe that infects everything here. And which immediately distanced them from the rest of the hardcore scene, I think. Yeah, in terms of their discography, on other albums they would get bigger, they would get poppier. But what a great snapshot this record is. Yeah, file them alongside Husker Du. and just enjoy them. Yeah, by all means, dig into the later albums, stuff like Tim, Let It Be. But I think this is, as I said, a really great snapshot of a band, a very, very young band, just doing their thing. So the seconds and minutes are just dropping off now. 16th on my list, clocking in at 26 minutes, 39 seconds. I've got What Makes a Man Start Fires by the Minutemen. Yeah, and here it is, my copy. Yeah, this is another band, ostensibly coming out of, the punk and hardcore scene, who were definitely, already taking it elsewhere within the space of their first couple of records. Yeah, this one is their second full-length LP, following The Punchline. And like I say, straight away, they're streets ahead of so many of their hardcore contemporaries, certainly lyrically. And musically, you just hear all this other stuff going on. Odd beats, time signatures, Watt's bass doing that Mike Watt thing. D. Boon's guitar kind of doing that needling kind of slightly funky thing. Yeah, some great Minutemen songs on this one. Bob Dylan wrote propaganda songs. Pure Joy, The Anchor. Split Red, where you hear some pretty cool kind of jazz bass going on there. And, Plight. Yeah, so that's What Makes a Man Start Fires, recommended. So next up, and we're below 25 minutes here at 24 minutes and 13 seconds, we've got Fela Kuti with Expensive Shit. Yeah, this one's from 1975, but like the Ramones earlier, you could happily pick any of Fela's kind of mid-70s albums to fit this list. Because, they all counted as albums, despite, like this one, it's basically just 2 long tracks, 1 per side. Yeah, I just think this one's an ideal starting point if you're kind of getting into Afrobeat. It's just an absolute kind of Fela Kuti classic. Yeah, the music is funky and political, but angry. But always feels like, party music. With these maddening grooves. And of course, on all Fela's albums of this period, you get to hear the absolutely mind-blowing drumming of Tony Allen, just a drumming genius. So 18th on the list, and we're back to some hardcore here. This is Minor Threat with Out of Step. Yeah, this one comes in under 22 minutes. This is 21 minutes, 36 seconds. Yeah, Out of Step qualifies as Minor Threat's only real full-length album, proper, I guess. It is compiled along with everything else they ever did on the complete discography CD. Yeah, and on this one, I think, is where you start to hear Minor Threat kind of growing up a bit and evolving. You definitely hear the very, very first seeds, I think, of what would become like that post-hardcore sound on this release. The lyrics as well, they're finally getting more directly kind of personal and a lot more nuanced. For me, Look Back and Laugh is the one key track here that encapsulates that. Yeah, but like I said, evolution is the thing here. I think with this Minor Threat release, you can hear Ian MacKaye, you can hear the cogs turning, you can hear the sound of him, moving on within the space of the record. Yeah, a track like Little Friend is, probably inches away from, what would be a great Fugazi song. So 19th, the penultimate entry on this list, clocking in at 20 minutes and 17 seconds. I've got 7 Fingers by Black Francis. Yeah, this one's from 2008, and I will admit I've got a slightly difficult relationship with a lot of Black Francis's solo stuff, and in fact the kind of the post-reunion Pixies stuff. When it hits, it hits pretty big, but when it doesn't, it just doesn't get me at all. A great example would be the recent Pixies albums. I absolutely love Beneath the Eyrie. I thought it was the best Pixies album in years. And then they followed it up with Doggerel, which just left me completely cold. Yeah, this one's a 7-track release, so maybe you'd want to qualify it as a mini album, whatever. But either way, it's one of Black's good ones, I feel. In fact, I think it's a great one. I think it's the closest he gets to the kind of the feel of his writing in the early Pixies days than any of his other solo works. Yeah, a track like Garbage Heap could easily be, an outtake from an album like Bossa Nova. And I Sent Away has this kind of rabid kind of punk rock feel, which has this vocal, which again, to me, it brings something to mind like a track like Isla de Encanto from Come On Pilgrim. yeah, this may be a short one, and it may be a mini album rather than an album. I'll leave that up to you, but it's highly recommended. And the 20th album and the final album on this list, clocking in at 15 minutes and 57 seconds, is Life's a Riot with Spy vs. Spy by Billy Bragg. Yeah, this is Billy's debut album from 1983, and yeah, despite the very, very short runtime and only having 7 tracks, it was classified as an album on its release, and it charted accordingly in the album charts. Yeah, this one's just a great debut, and it's just that classic heart on sleeve Billy Bragg style. Just him giving it everything vocally and just accompanying himself with that, you know, that scratchy, kind of chunky, cutting old Burns steer electric guitar that he played at the time. Yeah, you get some of Billy's best early numbers on Life's a Riot. You get The Milkman of Human Kindness. You get The Man in the Iron Mask. You get A New England. Yeah, short album, but, you know, very, very bittersweet lyrically, but really warm and human. And that's Billy Bragg. So 20 albums there in that list. And I think we managed to shave off a minute on every album by the time we got to the very end of that. Let me know if you have any favourite shorter kind of albums yourself, or what would you consider a short album? Yeah, please comment below if there's anything you think I've missed. Anyway, I tried to make this short, but it's probably gone on longer than I think. Either way, if you've got this far, thanks for watching. Yeah, hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.